Hello, everybody. Are you ready for clarity or confusion or both? And I think both are on a continuum is what we're going to be facing this week for the week of February 20th to the 26th, 2025, as we get ready for another CIRF week. And Pisces is the main energy. By the way, if you're new here, we're looking for a lot of different sources, and we're going to try to triangulate for the biggest influence. We're going to do the same thing for the solution, so you're not walking out of here just going, okay, this is what we might feel. It's one thing to know what to expect everyone to feel, but it's another thing on knowing what to best do to have the best chance of success. So we're going to look at that as well. We're going to include the moon phase. We're going to talk about tropical astrology. We're going to look at the Dreambot. Can't wait to show you the Dreambot, lucidity, and getting out. Humanity is actively enjoying waking up, okay? And then we have the I-Ching 4, youthful folly, which is interesting. We'll talk about why that is a perfect summary for all the astrology that we'll talk about. So the triangulation, in my mind, and we'll also be looking at the Rave mandala from Human Design in our solution, and that'll feed right into this, but it's seeking clarity and guidance. Why? Because of, mind and so Mercury, Sun, Saturn, Neptune, and North Node all in Pisces can be quite confusing, especially for Mercury. And so thoughts aren't quite as crisp. Memories are harder to retrieve, and things don't make a lot of sense. Everything's sort of dreamy and possibly illusions are abound. And so there's a lot of confusion. And so it'll be natural to see a lot of people wanting clarity. And there's an irony in that, just as a previous truther, an ex-truther, just constantly wanting the insatiable desire for wanting more and more truth. And the paradox is, the more truth you get, it begets more questions and more rabbit trails. And you just realize how futile it is. I mean, you can go get your truth, but there's kind of a cul-de-sac towards the end before it branches off into another rabbit trail where you're just not going to get the absolute truth, or you get overconfident in it and start acting like you know everything. There's an irony in all this clarity and confusion thing, and it's going to come to a head this week. High congruency score. So let's go get started. And a shout out to Malaya's Temple. I hope I said that. That's a great handle name. The Dreambot is the realest ever. So exciting. There is a war in heaven. Last week, the collective unconscious was, kind of showing some signs of conflicted energies specifically up in the air. And another airplane goes down in the news. Just seems like it's happening more frequently now. But I'll talk about the Dreambot, but let's give credit where credit is due. Best Comment Award goes to Malaya's Temple. And by the way, thank you for helping the channel. If you're putting a comment down, even though if you're not winning, that helps the YouTube algorithm and it helps our channel. And other ways to help the channel are, like right now, go down into the comments and pick a comment that you like the best. And that's how we determine who gets the Best Comment Award. It was far and away the best comment. So that's how we put out this award. And then there's other ways to help, and those are down in the show notes. We have links, you have intro videos that you can watch to help you sort out. These are very advanced modalities that we're using. So it takes a special kind of person to appreciate all the different mysticisms and energies that we're discussing. All right. And likewise, let's go talk about the Dreambot here at the bottom. So what I have analyzed is the red arrows say Mercury because it things about talk, think, and learn. And then we have green arrows. It's very fun. It's getting out. It's exploring. It's not cooped up. Even though I'm looking outside with half a foot of snow outside, fresh powder snow. And after this surf report, I'm going to be going to clear the driveway. But top word in the collective unconscious, lucidity and ride. That, to me, is really encouraging. It is clarifying. And the irony, again, with this confusion energy is that it has people asking questions. And so in my mind, lucidity and waking up and the great awakening and all that is not necessarily about knowing truth. It's about the willingness to ask questions about what you thought you knew. And I think that is the lucidity, is the willingness to question your own ideology, the willingness to accept what you always thought was truth. Not that you're going to get the truth. Once you start down this channel, you start to realize that you don't know a lot. And at the end, it's just more questions. But anyway, that's my opinion. And I think it's a fun ride, as evidenced by ride, run, party, food, leave, table, sky, door, air. So it's getting fresh air. It's going out. It's leaving the house and partying. It's very fun. This is a fun energy for the collective unconscious. Do you guys agree? All right. Just look at how close we're getting to the eclipse season again. We have next surf report. We're going to have a new moon. That's going to be the day after the close of this report. Then the very next day will be the new moon in Pisces. And then we start, the next full moon will be the lunar eclipse. And then we'll start a whole new eclipse cycle in Aries. I believe that's the last Aries solar eclipse. All right. So big energy is coming. It's the great wind down. Ironically, it's the last, we did this in the last cycle, but the last lunar cycle, the last 29 plus day lunar cycle is going to be in the last sign, Pisces, before the next eclipse. And then the eclipse will be in the first sign. I thought that's cool. That won't happen for quite some time after this. All right, and this week we are looking at these two vertical lines. These are the limits, and you see the retrograde in Mars. Mars goes station and direct, and that's probably the biggest news, other than this background signature, and we'll cover all that. Here's your kind of energy chart. Again, this is the confusion, clarity, energy, or continuum, paradox. And it's pretty much a straight line. There's probably some ups and downs here, but it's just going to stay very high all week long. And I'll show you why. We'll start with Thursday, and the biggest energy by far is going to be this Mercury and Jupiter goes exact. Well, I take that back. A little bit earlier on Thursday the 20th, that's when the last quarter moon is, and that's a big mile marker for our lunar phase, because after this is the waning crescent moon. So at 11:32 a.m. Central Standard Time on Thursday the 20th, that's when the last quarter moon is, and then a few hours later at 2:13, Mercury in Pisces will square Jupiter in Gemini. So it suggests that a challenge in balancing thinking with creative inspiration, as well as potential struggle between the desire for broad knowledge, Jupiter in Gemini, and the need for deep emotional understanding. Oh, there's that confusion again. So you might feel with this square, it's kind of a big thing this week energetically, is a pressure to imagine learning new things or desire to learn or pressure to learn, potential for profound spiritual insights or revelations, skill in communicating in the abstract or complex ideas. But most likely there's going to be some overthinking or maybe some conflicted ideas in terms of what to learn and how to think and ideologies, and that doesn't make any sense. Tendency to get lost in fantasy or unrealistic expectations. That's a Pisces thing. So possible archetypes here for this energy. This square is the empathic knowledge seeker, the inspired cosmic channeler, or the dreamy intellectual explorer. It's very spiritual in nature, but it's a conflicted spiritual. All right, now let's back up, and I like to do this kind of big picture, but I wanted to cover the square before because it was going exact. So on Friday, let's take a step back and see the whole picture astrologically. The first thing we always look at is the sun. Sun is in Pisces. The second biggest thing, this is post last quarter moon, so it's the waning crescent moon, and we'll be waning crescent all week, and then the next CIRF report will have our new moon in Pisces. So obviously the mutable water is the background signature, because both of those are the highest, and mutable water means Pisces. So it's all of Sun, Mercury, Saturn, Neptune, and North Node, all positioned in the intuitive and spiritual sign of Pisces. The waning crescent moon suggests a time of introspection and release, rejuvenation, relaxation. It's a very yin time. It can be very quiet, but whatever adds energy, because you ultimately want to be rejuvenated and get ready for the new moon. But putting it all together, because there's a lot more here, because we just talked about the Mercury and Jupiter. But also the sextile between Uranus and Saturn creates a balance between the need for structure and the desire for innovation and learning new things that we talked about. The Venus here is sort of by herself. There's a square developing with Mars, but Mars is going to station and go direct, so it'll be quite some time before any square really manifests. And 6 will be Venus in Aries. Brings a bold, passionate approach to relationships and creative pursuits. And then, of course, we have Pluto transiting Aquarius, so very subtly in the background, as signifies a collective shift towards greater social awareness and a potential for big radical change, as you are probably seeing out in the collective. So putting it all together, try to package it into one feeling state. We certainly have heightened intuition, empathy, spiritual awareness, and possibly a lot of dream states from all this Pisces energy. We have increased creativity, artistic expression from the variety of alignments, potential for breakthrough and insights and revelations, all that. The very mental square, but also the Pluto and Aquarius. This applies to all week, so watch out in this energy. Watch out for a tendency to become overwhelmed by emotions or sensitive to external influences. Might have a difficulty in grounding ideas or bringing them into practical reality. We're going to really focus in on our Rave mandala. Will be just that, the difficulty in grounding ideas and bringing them into practical reality. That whole continuum is in the Rave line. And with Pisces, we'll also have a challenge in maintaining clear boundaries. And so the solution I-Ching focuses on difficulty in relationships. So being careful affection. Possible archetypes with all this energy applies all week. Possible archetypes include the empathic cosmic dreamer. You might have the passionate spiritual revolutionary and the evolutionary shift in consciousness, as evidenced by the Dreambot, already focusing on it, lucidity. All right, and here we are, Saturday the 22nd at 2:30 a.m., middle of the night for most of us. Mars is going to station in Cancer at 17 degrees, 2 minutes. We'll probably retreat back down to 1 minute, 17 degrees, 1 minute. But in essence, it's going to stay above 17 degrees. Going to get right to 17 degrees, 1 minute, I believe. And this signifies a powerful focus related to emotional drives, instinctive responses, and the need for security and nurturing. The alignment intensifies feelings of protectiveness, defensiveness, and the desire to assert oneself in areas especially connected to like home, family, and personal identity. And wait until we talk about the Rave reading. It's really interesting, all the synchronicities happening, especially where Mars stations in that line. And I'll explain all that. But we have the possibility of heightened awareness of where we rush beginnings, learning patience through forced slowdown. Forced slowdown, what does that mean? Well, not only do you have Mars in station slowing down, parent to Earth, but you also have the waning crescent moon. So energetically very synchronized together. So we have the archetype here is the nurturing warrior guardian. It's the protector, the great protector, the compassionate, assertive master, wanting to rise. All right, now we have Mercury trine Mars go exact at 10:57 a.m. Central Standard Time. This is denoted here. It's Mars still in station and at 17 degrees 1 minute, like I said earlier. And that's a trine over to Mercury at 17 degrees 1 minute of Pisces, technically still starting a conjunction with Saturn. And so we have three. No wonder Mercury is so strong in the Dreambot, because Mercury is making sort of a main character this week. I'd say the big main character is Mars, and I'll show you why later. But Mercury is also one of the main characters because of the square to Jupiter early on, then a trine over to Mars, and then we'll go exact on Saturn. So 3 big alignments there. But this Mercury trine Mars is very watery. Flow of energy is full of intuitive, imaginative qualities. And we have the emotional protective instincts in Cancer. So the trine aspect suggests a natural alignment between the need for self-expression and the desire to nurture and defend oneself and others. The energy combines with the powerful focused drive of Mars in Cancer, allowing individuals to assert themselves in a manner that is both emotionally attuned and intuitively guided. So you're going to feel an increased ability to express more confidently, and imagination in problem solving, greater confidence in advocating for personal and familial needs, connecting to others or the desire to do that. All right. And then on Monday, we have Mercury closing in on Saturn. And that will go exact in the morning on Tuesday at 6:02 a.m. So it's really on Tuesday we'll go exact, but this energy is getting front stage. The alignment in Pisces predicts an energetic fusion of mental focus, communication, and thinking. That's obviously Mercury, with the qualities of discipline, responsibility, and constraint, which is obviously Saturn. And it's expressed through Pisces' imagination, intuitiveness, and spiritual. This is the time of deep contemplation where thoughts and communication take on a more serious, realistic, pragmatic tone. Might feel like our mind is working harder than usual to grasp complex ideas or to find practical solutions to certain problems, especially those that involve the dissolution of boundaries, surrender, or spiritual growth. You'll see the mental cogs are getting much more, realistic, but truth-oriented and pragmatic, face of reality. Tuesday the 25th, Mars is direct, and that is now 17 degrees, 2 minutes of Cancer. And, through all those weeks of retrograde in Mars, there may have been this sense of frustration or limitation, kind of stuckness or blockage around taking action or making any progress. And hold that thought, because this Rave is really going to outline this continuum. But as Mars begins direct, there's this gradual release of the inertia. It's like breaking through all those previous walls and stuckness. And so here's the picture of this guy just pounding through and starting on the new horizon here. Mars begins direct. There's a gradual release of the inertia, allowing for forward movement, the ability to be more effectively, do your thing and channel your energy in a way that aligns with your inner needs and instincts. It is important to note that this energy, is about 2 days away from really synergizing effectively for the new moon, because new moon energy is really goal-oriented and a fresh new start, and therefore putting out new goals and achieving those. So that energy will be nice and fresh and ready. But for some of us, it'll feel a little bit too early. So on the one hand, you'll have Mars going direct, and on the other hand, you have the moon still in severely waning crescent. So as the light from the moon gets dimmer and dimmer and dimmer down to nothing, like 24 hours prior to the new moon, it signifies much more closing time, lights out. It's like full on. You don't really want to be doing much of anything at that point. So that runs in contradiction just for, a day or two with Mars going direct. Those are in total contradiction with each other. But once that new moon happens, you'll feel it synergize. It'll be like the opening gate for the bucking bronco or the rodeo, and it'll just be going out, getting started, even though it'll be heavy in water. So you'll have a mutable water. So you'll actually have mutable water, both of them 6 at the new moon. All right. Here's the I-Ching, and it said youthful folly, and here's why. So we're going to look at all the influences, all the astrological influences, but I wanted to quickly get through the change lines. So line 1, because there's 3 of them, 1, 4, and 6. And those change lines in hexagram 4 means it's the nature of youth to stumble into error through carelessness or playfulness. Similar problems can plague childish adults too. So some of you will accidentally forget that you don't want to be starting new things, and just be a little more careful about what you start, if anything. It's not wrong to start. It's not wrong to start nothing. Double negative. Line 4, clinging to fantasies leads to humiliation. I see that a lot in my work, especially now with all the influence in Pisces. You may want to correct another. You may want to correct another for perceived wrongdoing, but take care that the punishment fits the crime. We're going to see a lot of, based on this line 6, even more resounding revenge that this line 6 accentuates from previous mistakes on a grand level. So the emotional experience of I-Ching 4 is one of confusion, inexperience, and the need for guidance, often marked by a sense of naivety, being at the beginning of a learning journey. So for one, we have the waning crescent. That was a sense of intellectual confusion or a need to step back and reassess one's path, and it was mainly in Aquarius. We have the strong mutable background signature, a feeling of being overwhelmed by emotions or external influences. We have the sun in Pisces. Pisces is dreamy, intuitive, sometimes very unclear and unfocused about guidance, about what you need to be doing. And then we have the Mercury conjunct Saturn. We have the Mercury, that's not even discussed in here, the square over to Jupiter. All these were producing confusion and self-doubt, mental blockages. Neptune conjunct the North Node create a sense of being pulled towards spiritual or intuitive growth, but feeling lost or uncertain about how to proceed. So anyway, there's a lot here, and that focuses in on the youthful folly. Right? So let's go to our solution slide. But let's button up the influence here. The summary is, with a very strong mutable water background signature, it's no wonder that a week of boundaryless imagination and dreamy confusion spawn accidental thoughts and questions that thirst for clarity and, paradoxically, just beget more questions and more confusion. Expect heightened emotional sensitivity and a deep flow of empathy. There is a naivety in the energetic drawdown of the waning crescent moon, synergizing with the lack of clarity and marked confusion in the collective unconscious, especially when Mars stations and turns direct from its weeks of retrograde in Cancer. All righty, let's get back to our solution. Put the 3 change lines in and you get hexagram 54. Careful affection. Affection must be handled carefully to be both satisfying and supportive of each other's self-respect. So the core lessons of hexagram 54 of the I-Ching is to be aware of imbalance, recognize and address any power imbalances or unequal roles. Avoid rushing into commitments. Take time to understand the other person. Try to focus in on healthy boundaries, because Pisces is, for good or for bad, there's both good and bad in boundaryless, but it's boundaryless. And so making sure that the boundaries are healthy, maintain a sense of self, and avoid sacrificing too much for the sake of harmony. So proceed thoughtfully, communicate openly, set boundaries, act with compassion. All right, now this is a very critical conversion chart, and I'm choosing Mars. And this is because it's a rare situation that we have where we have the planet that we're looking at is going through 3 different phases, and will stay in the same Rave gate and line throughout all 3 of those phases. So retrograde, station, and direct, and all week long, Mars will not move from that line. So 53, line 3, and then we have sidereal Gemini to get in alignment with the stars. So here is the Rave. Rave is 53. We're going to do a little deep dive. Like I'm starting to really like these Rave mandala readings because it comes out in continuums. I'm also advocating you can go to your particular. You can get a human design reading for free. You can get it free online. You probably have to supply an email, but you can get your chart. And in the chart, we'll have a list of Rave gates and lines. So this one is gate 53, line 3. So if you have this in your chart, it would be a trial and error line. So it says, in its most natural position, the concentration on avoiding conflict to ensure protection and continued development. The pressure to eliminate conflict in order to develop. Develop means do a project. And then on the unconscious provoking of conflict that logically threatens security and development, energy which provokes conflict and threatens development. So it's like getting projects started and having the difficulty to finish them. This line 3 is the trial and error line. So the paradox here is that it's the desire for new beginnings, new projects, new starts, but there's also a lack of completion. So therefore, the two sides, the two extremes of this continuum, on the one hand, you get restlessness and impatience. It's a need to start new things, but it can be haphazard and too much, reckless, and you're just starting new things, not really planning them, not designing the goal, the vision, and so like a meandering. But then on the backside is you're not really finishing anything as well. So it's very common with this line to have a lot of projects, like started but never finished. Here's the other thing that I highly recommend you look at if you do your human design chart is to look at the gate and line, and then the increments and the decrements are ruled by but symbolized by a planet. Every increment and decrement has a planet. The increment and decrement are the yin and the yang to the continuum. Every I-Ching is a continuum. And so it gives you the energetic context for what you need to meld together to be in a balanced state. So in this case, we have Mars and the decrement, and that's ironic, right? Because Mars is going in those three phases this week: retrograde, station, and direct, all in this line of practicality. So I thought that was interesting that it's the planet, but it's also the decrement ruler, or the decrement symbol. So what that means to us is on the increment side is the moon, and that brings emotional sensitivity, reflection, cyclical growth, while Mars in this line adds assertiveness, courage, and tendency towards impulsive action. So without any Mars, you know what you need to be doing, but you never really get started. You just sort of dream about it. The Mars gives you the ability to start, but if you don't have any moon, there's no there's no intuitive knowing about whether I should be doing this project or not. You just start a project. Don't even really think about it. Don't even contemplate the end point of it, and you just get all these projects started. So it's a melding of both intuitive and action. All right. So practically, how should we handle this line? And by the way, we're all going to be swimming in this continuum. That's why I'm focusing on it. We're going to be focusing on it all week long because Mars is doing those 3 phases in this line. So, therefore, my practical suggestions for working with this line is you would embrace trial and error. Recognize that mistakes are part of the learning process and not a reason to give up. Normally in this line, we would have you set realistic goals, but that's not really appropriate for the moon phase that we're in. We're in that waning crescent phase. We probably shouldn't be setting many goals at all, but you're going to have that energy behind it. So if you want to do anything, you can kind of pre-imagine what the new moon is going to be for you. The new moon in Pisces, next CIRF reports. You can start to work on those, but I wouldn't start it on any of them, even when Mars kind of feels like it wants to, like when it goes direct and starts moving. We'll probably have some pent up cabin fever, kind of that feeling. But so the next suggestion is to cultivate patience. That's appropriate for this time frame. Start to think about the upcoming new beginning on February 27th. If you're really goal oriented with a Mars strength here, is you can channel that energy into designing or planning, but I wouldn't be doing a lot. And then here's the big thing, the big foot stomper that you can do with this line is learn from old experiences. Learning and reflecting on the past projects and goals, and just from start to finish, how well do you do? Where are your choke points? What can you do to improve that whole process from starting, setting the goal, planning your course of action, and then do you procrastinate, or do you have or do you be more impulsive? And just reflecting on that and where you are so that you can prepare for that new moon phase. All right. It's a really cool line. I really dig it. All right. Let's get you the solution. Remember, we're triangulating between I-Ching 54, careful affection. We just talked deep dive into the 53 line 3, which is the starting new projects. That's why he's holding an egg. And we have Sidereal Gemini and the waning crescent moon. Number 1, the most dominant overlap here is that they all are psychologically flexible. So be adaptable. Be psychologically flexible. Try to notice when you're becoming entrenched, bullheaded, or highly opinionated, and soften that rigidity for this week. Okay. Number 2, focus on clear communication and saying what you mean. Slow down, avoid emotional reactivity. Give your reactivity lots of time and space. Just slow down in general. That's a direct reference to the waning crescent moon and the careful affection. Don't make others guess as to what you might want or need. Don't rely on telepathy, which is a natural, mutable water kind of a vibe. Don't do that. Just say what you want. Say what you need. You don't have to be crass about it. You don't have to be demanding, but just don't expect telepathy. I know a lot of my clients that kind of have that natural inclination. Be very clear. In other words, when you're around other people, just be very clear about what you really mean. That's it. Number 3, lots of energetically and behaviorally slowing down, reflecting on the lunar cycle that is finishing up. Journal the new ideas of those that will be Journal new ideas as those will be intuitively plentiful. Use the Rave to assimilate and prepare for the upcoming new moon, because it's about starting and finishing projects. All right, socially this week, careful affection is all about social. It doesn't mean you have to, but when you're around people, be careful and be methodical and mindful. Number 2, that's the Rave. The Rave is it doesn't mean one or the other. Number 3, waning crescent moon. It's not normally real social, but Gemini is. So it's a wash. It's pretty neutral. None of this means that you have to go be social or not. It just means this, and according to our solution matrix, is conducive to whatever works for you. If you want to be social, we kind of have the tools. Just be careful around it. Be mindful. Say what you mean. Slow down. Don't be reactive, etc. If you want to be alone, I think this will support that as well. And then we have largely a yin week. And the only reason it's not just full on total yin is because of Mars, in my opinion. Mars station and direct, especially towards the end of the week, kind of when I talked about the Mars direct being a contradiction to the non-synchronizing to the waning crescent moon. It only really happens for a couple of days there, but you'll have like a kind of a yangish cabin fever feeling when, in my opinion, when you get the late stage waning crescent moon and Mars goes direct. That'll be kind of like cabin feverish. All right. That's all I have, everybody. I really appreciate you being here. Don't forget to look down into the comments and find the best comment award. And if you have any questions, I have lots of notes in the show notes, links and stuff, helpful tips, and a donation link. I appreciate you all. Thank you for being here. Have a great week. Cheers.